When Riot first announced Eternals, I was hyped. Finally, I get a chance to show how much better I am at my champions, and the blinged out mastery emote made me shiver at the prospect of flexing on the normies. But one Reddit search later and everyone is up in arms. No one seems to like this idea. I have seen everything from how it messes up the collections tab, to the pricing scheme, to how tilting the in-game notifications are. It is insane what will set a player off these days. But now, Eternals has been out for a while, and we've got to experience from our own sides for a little while, whether you bought it or refused to buy it and just turned off the notifications. So, is Eternals just a cheap cash grab? Or is it something thought out that enriches the experience of those who want to pay for it? In this video, I'm going to discuss what I think Eternals brings to the League of Legends community, some problems other people as well as myself have with the system, and my overall thoughts and feelings on Riot's business strategy. I gotta put that business degree to use somewhere. To briefly summarize, Eternals is a tracking system recently added to League of Legends, which you can purchase in order to track your progress. There are two kinds of Eternals, general and unique. The general Eternals are the same for every champion and can be purchased with Blue Essence. The general Eternals track epic monsters killed, structures such as towers and inhibitors destroyed, and takedowns. The unique Eternals, on the other hand, are different for each individual champion and tracks things that Riot considers important or of high skill level for that champion. These Eternals can only be bought with RP. Each Eternal has 5 milestones, and when you pass all 5 milestones for a given Eternal, you get a tally on your mastery emote and unlock the personal best feature for that Eternal, which will track your best performance in a single game for that given Eternal. Notifications for each milestone pop up for you in-game, as well as for other players who choose to leave the notifications on. Riot released a trailer when they announced this feature, and I'll be referencing that video a lot here, but if you're interested in checking it out, the link is in the description. Let me start by showing you my crafting page. Very mature, I know. But here's the thing. I stopped making keys for this joke. Riot's current loot box system heavily incentivizes players to play multiple champions in order to try to achieve that S rank on champions they haven't before. And from Riot's side, this strategy makes a lot of sense. They want you to try more champions. The more champions you play, the more invested you are in the game, and the more skins you're likely to buy. Plus, you're much less likely to quit the game if you like a good chunk of the characters. The problem with this? Some of us found our soulmates the second their champion spotlight got released. The crafting system is punishing for one tricks. No other way to say it. If you only like to play 3 or 4 champions in League, or you just want to be able to perform decently in every game, well, you only get 3 to 4 chests this season. Whereas that one guy who hits random and ends half his games because he gets Kog'Maw jungle, lucks out and gets a free chest every time a teammate gets an S. And while I explained earlier that getting players to try other champions is a good thing, I don't think it's in Riot's best interest to discourage one-tricking either. One-tricks are some of the most dedicated players in this game. They're the ones that are making content, posting tips and guides, and pushing the meta for their respective champions. Imagine a league where Riven's didn't animation cancel, or Yasuo's couldn't Keyblade. Bad examples. My point is, one-tricks bring a lot to the table, and there really isn't much that supports them. People don't stare in awe when you're a 1 million mastery point pantheon. They get in the game and all chat asking you if you've ever seen the sun before. And mastery emotes mean nothing anymore because they don't ever reset. Someone who is mastery 7 might not have played that champion in literal years, and might have only got that mastery 7 because they one-tricked the champion when they were busted. But Eternals finally gives you statistical proof that you are proficient at doing the things Riot has designed your champion to do. It's not just generic stuff anymore like the old stats page. Sure, there are the general Eternals, but the unique Eternals are made for each individual champion. Why is no one excited about this? That not only means we can compare specific champion attributes to each other, but it also gives us insight on how Riot thinks these champions fit into the game. Let's use our Bird Boy for example. Rakan's Eternals are as follows. 1. Captivating entrance. which measures how many times you knock up 2 or more opponents with a single W. 2. Dance Floor Defense, which measures the total mitigated damage by his E shield. And 3. Eye Candy, which measures how many times you charm 2 or more opponents with a single ultimate. From these 3 Eternals, we can deduce that Riot thinks Rakan players should do 2 things in-game. 1. Engage and lock down multiple opponents, which he can do with his W and R. And 2. Mitigate damage, which he can do with his E, his passive shield, as well as the heal on his Q. Look at that, that's his entire kit. Obviously, it can't be all sunshine and rainbows, though. I mean, there has to be some truth to the complaints when there are this many people complaining about it. Let's start with what I think are some of the more legitimate concerns. First of all, the pricing. 600 RP is a ludicrous amount for a single champion Eternal. 650 RP is currently $5 US, meaning that each Eternal is basically $5. But look on the bright side. If you buy 12 Eternals over the course of the season, that extra 50 RP is going to get you one free. Except it won't. Because Riot also has a season pass for 5850 RP. For less than the cost of 10 Eternals, you can unlock Eternals for all 148 champions currently on the Rift. The closest RP package for this is $50 for 650 RP, which will also leave you enough to buy a cheap skin. At first I wasn't very happy about the season pass, as it kind of flies in the face of that whole one-trick love shtick I mentioned earlier, at least from a marketing standpoint. But then I realized the pass isn't really for the one-tricks, it's more for those people who have a very wide champion pool, so that they don't feel abused by the pricing system, or like they have to pick and choose their favorites out of the tens of champions they like to play. Personally, though, I kinda wish the price ratio between a single Eternal and the season pass was a little bit bigger, because to me, it feels kinda dumb that if I want to buy Eternals for the 5 champions I use to climb, I've got to drop $35 for 4550 RP, which is going to leave me 1550 RP just kind of sitting there, when for an extra $15, I get 143 more Eternals. Such a bulk deal. But they're Eternals I'm never going to look at, because what ADC isn't going to dodge when I lock in talent support? It's not that I think the season pass should be more expensive, I just feel that the price for a single Eternal shouldn't be nearly as high as it is. One other add-on I've seen to this whole pricing argument is that the pricing scheme always leaves you with some amount of RP left over. You can't pay the exact amount for a certain product in-game, and as such you're always going to have some in-game currency left over. These in-game currency systems are usually put into games for one of 4 reasons. 1. It blurs the line between the value of items and real-world money. 500 RP is much easier for a person to spend than when they see $5. But you also means you can't define the exact price of a Riot point because it changes the ratio depending on the amount you spend. If you spend $5, then $1 is worth 130 RP. But if you spend $50, then $1 is worth 144 RP. This also pushes you to spend extra money because buying Riot points in bulk is a better deal. Number 2, it also helps to distance the game items from real-world currency legally. I won't go into details in this video because it's a pretty complicated topic, but suffice it to say that it's a lot simpler and easier for publishers if you purchase a consumable with in-game currency than it is for you to spend real money on a permanent good. If you're interested in a better explanation and analysis on that topic, drop a comment below. Number 3 is one of the more obvious reasons, being that buying a currency package that doesn't fit directly with the products you're looking to buy is almost guaranteed to leave you with something left over. We've all been there. You see, you have some RP, you click on the skins tab, and boom, you're 100 RP short of that skin you wanted. So you drop $5 more and the cycle starts again. Lastly, number 4 is that these systems allow publishers ways to reward players without all the legal implications of offering the players real-world money. This reason isn't super important because Riot doesn't do this directly with Riot Points, but the chest system gives you skins which have a set RP value, so in a roundabout way they kinda do this. If instead of giving you chests, Riot gave you $1.50 for every time you got an S, you would have to link a payment account, sign all sorts of legal forms, and even claim it on your taxes if you made enough. And I'm gonna be honest, I just don't think Mundo mains are smart enough to handle that. Now this is a complaint that I find has a lot of merit. Some of the unique Eternals are very creative and go far to showing a player's skill, while some of them are just basic tickers for things that are mostly out of the player's control or are so basic to a champion's kit that if you're not doing them in every game, you're pretty much trolling. Let's take a look at two of Miss Fortune's Eternals for example. On one end, 2-for-1 specials is a very well crafted Eternal. Miss Fortune's Q becomes a guaranteed crit on the second shot if the first hit kills its target. Meaning the best way to rack up poke damage during the laning phase is to wait for a minion near the enemy laner to get low and then cast Double Up. Double Up will then kill the minion and crit the enemy laner. This technique is very clear and a well-known strategy to differentiate between good Miss Fortune players and the more meh Miss Fortune players. On the other hand, the Catwalk Eternal is basically a participation trophy. For those not in the know, Miss Fortune's W, Strut, has a passive and an active. The passive gives Miss Fortune movement speed if she doesn't take damage for 5 seconds, and then more after another 5 seconds. The active gives you bonus attack speed for a bit and then sets the passive to full speed. The Eternal, which you pay for, tracks how far you've moved with the W passive maxed out. A state you can literally reach by right-clicking somewhere. That's it. I guess you could make a case that this shows how well you position and avoid damage, but when this counts walking back to lane, that's going to be a really hard sell. For a more redundant example, let's take a look at Nautilus's Eternal Drop Anchor, which is ticked every time you land Q. I'm going to just say this as a Nautilus player, if you're playing Nautilus and you're not checking this off at least once, you are trolling. Sure, you're going to miss the occasional long-range hook and laning phase, but it takes no skill to throw a hook into a group of 5 in the middle of a team fight and CC someone point blank. This is so redundant to Nautilus's kit that there's no reason for it to be here. And Riot knows this, because his first Eternal, Deep Dive Combos, requires you to land a Q. Drop Anchor is the second Eternal. Simply landing your engage spell comes after performing your entire engage combo. Riot put no effort into Nautilus's uniques at all. This could have been something so much better that shows what Nautilus players should be doing in the middle of a large team fight and differentiate between better Nautilus players and just basic bot Nautilus players. For example, let's replace this Eternal with one we make up. Let's call it Sinking Ships. Nautilus ticks this one off every time he CCs 2 or more opponents with his passive during a team fight, or say every 3 seconds. This would be a much better Eternals for Nautilus, but no, we got land your Q after land your Q and do a bunch of other stuff. I have 2 conflicting opinions on this. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not conflicted on this topic, I just have 2 complete and opposite minds on the subject. Not on the notifications, no, they're annoying and I'll be disabling them. Aurelia just got her 30th takedown milestone. Popping up big and bright on the side of my screen is distracting at best and tilting at worst. No, I'm talking about how they are implemented and how they can be disabled. Allow me to explain my viewpoints with 2 different stakeholders, the player and the business. The player side is pretty annoying to have when these notifications are set on by default and they're so big and intrusive. When the first one popped up on my screen, I honestly thought it was a pop-up ad. Now you can disable them in the settings, but with the way Riot's been making things lately, this is starting to feel like a task you have to do every couple of months just to enjoy the same League of Legends experience you have been for years. Also, Riot adding in something that makes you feel the experience is worse never feels good, even if you can turn it off. The feeling of having to take extra time and effort, no matter how small, just to keep the game at the same enjoyment level sucks. Plus, come on, this is the League of Legends community. The players would rather spend 50 plus minutes taking flames and death threats from another player than complain on Reddit about how Riot never does anything about their toxic player base than open a menu and press one button. From the business side, however, setting the notifications to off by default would just be marketing suicide for Eternals. I don't think it could be overstated how poor a business decision it would be to put the time, money, and effort into crafting the Eternal system and not exposing the player base to it. I've already touched on the League community's phobia of menus, and let's be honest, how many of us are going to open the menu so that we can see that the 10-0 Jax that just one-shot us just got his 500th takedown on our dead body? This strategy will get increasingly more important to letting Riot's player base know about their new products the farther we get from Eternal's launch, and will serve as advertising in between series releases. This on by default also supports the power fantasy of flexing your Eternal score. Seeing that you just hit your 300th bicycle kick is nice, but knowing that the enemy mid laner you just caught out saw that they were your 300th bicycle kick as you flashed your blinged out M7 emote inflates your fragile Lee Sin ego, which makes the Eternals seem like a much better quality product to the consumer, or a better value proposition as we call it in the business world. At least Riot is nice enough to give us the option to disable it upon release, and then we didn't have to complain or boycott the game just to get this to be a achievements. Two things you're going to quickly notice side by side is that the CSGO achievements are very generic. Sure, you have the occasional kill X amount of players with this weapon, but for the most part the achievement tracks something that can be done by every player in almost every game. And you could say the same thing for the general Eternals, but even those are on a per champion basis, which allows you to compare and contrast your champion pool. With the CSGO achievement, you have no idea if you did more damage with one weapon as compared to another, just that you've done 2500 damage to the enemy. Which leads to my second point. Achievements are one and done. That's it. Once you check the box, that achievement does nothing for you. Eternals, on the other hand, not only have multiple milestone markers, they also give you that personal best feature. Instead of just passing one mile marker, you instead have the opportunity to set and then break your own record over and over and over again. Looking at the second part of the claim, I find my opinions to be slightly more complicated. Riot already tracks your KDA and objective control per champion on your stats page, so I don't really feel like it would be that hard for them to bin those numbers into epic monster structures destroyed and takedowns. But you can get the general Eternals with Blue Essence, so I don't really mind. But saying that the unique should be free because Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation do that for free is honestly just not an informed statement about how those platforms operate. Achievements and other free features on pay-to-own platforms are free in the same way that bread rolls are free at a restaurant. Sure, they're great, and for some people it's the whole reason you go, but you have to actually buy a meal too. The cost of your free bread is included in the meal you pay for. It's used as an enticer and an enhancer to make sure you come in and enjoy your experience so that you keep coming back. This is how those features work in gaming platforms like Steam. The publisher, the platform, and the game developer all make money off the sales of the game, and as such the cost of those features like achievements are offset by those sales. This goes double for console platforms who not only produce revenue from the games, but also from the hardware. Now there are some notable exceptions of free-to-play games that have achievements, like the aforementioned CSGO. But oftentimes when this is the case, it's because they're on a platform that either recommends or just downright requires every game to have achievements because their main business is pay-to-own games. League of Legends, on the other hand, is a freelance and a free-to-play game with no paywalls halting your progression. In theory, and cosmetics aside, you could experience everything League of Legends has to offer from a gameplay perspective absolutely free. You could play every game mode, unlock every character, master every role, and climb all the way to rank 1 with your default Ezreal skin and never give Riot a penny.
You belong in a museum. A lot of good mages out there. None of them are this.
Riot makes their money by selling its extra features, not by selling its core gameplay like Steam does. The gaming community seems to have an absolute and unchangeable phobia of microtransactions, no matter what it is. If the community knew nothing about a game, nothing at all, except for that it has microtransactions, it would be completely panned and destroyed before any other details got a chance to surface. The community's hatred is intense and unwavering. Now, I can see where some of this anger comes from, especially when it comes to pay-to-own games, where you put an upfront cost for what you believe is an entire experience, only to find you have to pay more to get all of it. That's just downright frustrating. But people don't tend to think this way even when it comes to free-to-play games. People still tend to see microtransactions as walling an experience they think they deserve. Let me make this clear. Free-to-play does not mean non-profit. Riot Games is a for-profit company. That means they are in business to make money. Not to say that the team at Riot doesn't genuinely try to create the best, most enjoyable game they can. It's very clear they care about that. But if the skins and the merch and the event tickets weren't bringing back the greenbacks, League of Legends would not be on its 10th season. And there's nothing wrong with a company being for profit. That's the main reason to start a business. To turn a profit by providing a good or service to a community. Nobody faults Walmart for charging more than it costs them to get pots and pans from the manufacturer. Or says, oh, how shameful of Samsung that they would try to get people to buy their phones by advertising. But here we have a company that gives you the core product for free. For free. And says, hey, if you want, we have some of this add-on stuff that makes the core product even cooler. You don't really need it, but if you think it's worth it, you can totally buy it from us. And everybody just loses their mind. Now let me be clear. I don't think all microtransactions are fair. Games advertised as free-to-play, but only give you a small portion of the experience, then force you to pay to progress, are pretty sleazy. And multiplayer games that allow people to pay for advantages are even worse. But I don't think it's fair to say that microtransactions as a concept are inherently immoral. If you're going to compare Riot's revenue strategy to someone like EA's, well, you're just plain wrong. Riot, at least from a monetization standpoint, has always treated us very well as a community. Almost everything you can buy with RP falls into one of 3 categories. Cosmetics, or things that change visual or aesthetic options in the game but don't necessarily change the core gameplay. These are things like skins, emotes, and summoner icons. Analytics, which now come to us in the form of Eternals, and convenience items. Things like extra room pages, or being able to buy champions if you don't want to grind out the blue essence for them. Now, I can see some of you saying that having to buy the champions is a core gameplay paywall disguised as a time sink. And while yes, this does check all the right boxes, I would make the case that not giving players all the champions right out of the gate is more of an experience tailoring decision than it is a monetary one. Riot provides each new player with choices between a hand-picked set of champions. One for each role, each a different playstyle, and each of them are some of the least mechanically demanding champions for their respective roles. These champions are hand-picked so that players don't have to worry about specific mechanics while learning the overall rules of League. Imagine how horrible it would be for a new player to try to learn this game from scratch if their champion pool was Camille, Lee Sin, Azir, Aphelios, and Zyra. Your early levels also give you plenty of blue essence to buy other champions you might be interested in. Having players unlock champions as they go also helps with player retention. One of the big reasons players keep coming back is because there's always something new to try. Type any champion into your YouTube search bar. People are always discovering new ways to play different characters. Spacing out when players get champions combined with the constantly changing meta makes it so players will always have something new to do or deal with their game. Now, I did say almost earlier, and honestly I considered not even covering this because it's so off topic, but in the interest of completeness I wanted to cover these two outliers. First, League does offer XP boost, which could be considered paying for progression, but does leveling up quickly even matter after level 30? The other is the Clash ticket. Without one of these, you can't participate in the Clash tournaments, but Riot allows you to buy them with blue essence and sometimes they just give them to you. Again, I don't really find this dirty dealing. It's not fair to chastise Riot for trying to make money. After all, that's what most of us are trying to do every day when we clock into work. But I think it's pretty clear that Riot has been very fair with us as to how they make that money. And at the end of the day, if something doesn't appeal to you, just don't buy it. Riot doesn't make every facet of League to appeal to every single player. A good chunk of the community, myself included, hates Yasuo. But for those people who play him, his mains, they love it. The same can be true for the features that Riot offers for us to buy. Some people want to track all of their metrics, try hard and see themselves improve. And some people literally just log in every now and again to play ARAMs because their little legend looks like their cat. My point is, everybody likes different things, and one tricks or people with small dedicated champion pools don't see a lot of love. So I'm very excited to see how League handles Eternals going forward. But what do you think? Will you be picking up Eternals, or do you think they're just a waste of money? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, this is my first time making a business to player analysis video, so if you have any suggestions on how I could do this format better, please let me know. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a like and subscribe. I really enjoyed making this, so if it's successful, I'll definitely make more like it. But thank you for watching all the way. That viewer retention really helps. Have a great day.